they miss you? Do they even notice your absence? Or have they already moved on the moment you stopped reaching out? Hi, I'm Jim Rohn, and if you've ever found yourself obsessing over these questions in the middle of a silent, aching pause after a breakup with a dismissive, avoidant partner, I want you to know you're not alone, you're not overreacting, and no, you're not too sensitive. You're human. You're wired for connection. And you're likely trying to make sense of a dynamic that felt confusing, one-sided, and emotionally hollow by the end. Here's the truth most people don't tell you. Dismissive avoidants do feel something during no contact, but it's often not what you expect and definitely not what they show. Their silence isn't evidence of indifference. It's often a protective mechanism deeply rooted in early emotional neglect. To understand what's really going on beneath the surface, we need to look past the cold exterior and into the wounded blueprint underneath. In this video, we're going to explore the emotional patterns of the dismissive avoidant during no contact, what they're thinking, what they're avoiding, and why your silence may affect them more than they'd ever admit. More importantly, we'll talk about what you can do with that information to stop spiraling and start reclaiming your power. If that sounds like the clarity you've been looking for, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a video that supports your healing, growth, and emotional truth. This isn't just about them, it's about you. Remembering that you are not someone to be forgotten, you are someone to be chosen, and that starts with choosing yourself. The first thing a dismissive avoidant often feels when no contact begins is a surprising sense of relief. It might sound harsh, but it's a psychological defense mechanism. In their mind, they're no longer expected to carry the emotional weight of the relationship, the conversations, the vulnerability, the need to show up emotionally, and that absence feels like freedom to them. They don't yet register it as loss. What they register is relief from pressure. In these early days, they may even appear to be thriving. You might see them post more, engage with others, look unbothered, or even act as though nothing happened. And that can feel incredibly painful to witness, especially when you're on the other side, navigating the heartache, the unanswered questions, the emotional withdrawal symptoms that come when you've been deeply invested. It can feel like they're sailing away without a scratch while you're left drowning in confusion. But what you need to remember is this: what you're seeing is the surface. The avoidant isn't skipping the emotional impact. They're simply delaying it. For someone who has spent a lifetime disconnecting from their feelings to feel safe, this is just their default response. They mentally file the relationship away, assuming they'll either find someone new, or if they feel like it, come back later and pick up where things left off, as if emotional intimacy can be paused and resumed like a show on Netflix. But reality doesn't work that way. Relationships don't work that way. And eventually, the absence starts to echo. From a secure perspective, this is not your cue to chase. This is your invitation to stay grounded in your own center, because chasing someone who's emotionally numbing themselves only further teaches you to ignore your own pain, your own truth, your own value. Their delay in processing the breakup is not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their avoidance. It may take them weeks or even months to feel the full emotional weight of your absence, but that has nothing to do with you not being enough. It has everything to do with how they've been taught to survive emotional closeness. So while they distract, you heal. While they numb, you feel. And while they delay, you grow. That's not weakness. It's the essence of emotional maturity. You're not falling behind, you're walking forward, even when it hurts. That's what choosing self-worth over temporary connection really looks like. This brings us perfectly to the second stage, the quiet intrusion of awareness. No matter how skilled a dismissive avoidant is at distracting themselves, numbing, or pretending they're untouched by the breakup, the truth begins to seep through. They can run from the emotional impact, but not forever. Because no human being is immune to feeling. Not even those who've built a life around avoiding it. The body keeps score. And the mind, despite all its defenses, eventually lets in what the heart has been trying to suppress. Over time, the illusion that they're completely fine begins to crack. The narrative they've created, that walking away was easy, that you were just a phase, that they're unbothered, starts to unravel. That's when they feel a flicker of unease. It shows up as anxiety, restlessness, or intrusive thoughts about you. They may not recognize it for what it is, but something is no longer sitting right. The mental wall they use to block emotion starts to shift. Now, for the first time, they begin to question everything. Not just the breakup, but themselves. The confidence they had in the distance starts to fade. And under that unraveling, they begin to remember who you really were. Someone who genuinely tried. Someone who offered patience, compassion, and emotional presence. Someone who met them where they were, even when it cost you your own stability. And if we're honest, you were likely one of the few people who truly saw them. Not the version they performed, the real them. Flaws, fears, and all. But here's the painful part. Avoidants rarely acknowledge this out loud. Admitting loss would mean admitting vulnerability. And that's what they've worked their entire emotional lives to avoid. Their coping strategy depends on projecting control, on convincing themselves and everyone around them that they're unaffected, that they're impenetrable. But that's never been the truth. No one walks away from deep connection untouched. No one. And even if they try to mask it, even if they posture online or keep up the image, they feel it. Especially when you don't reach out. When you've blocked them, removed access, and created a firm boundary, the absence becomes deafening. Still, rather than face that pain directly, they'll twist the narrative. They'll tell themselves this discomfort is something else. Boredom, curiosity, pride, anything but regret. They'll intellectualize it, reframe it, distance themselves from the truth because admitting they lost someone who genuinely cared means looking at themselves honestly. And that's what they fear most. But the reality remains, they miss you. They know on some level that letting you go was a mistake. And now that mistake is something they have to live with silently, while doing everything they can to pretend it doesn't hurt. This brings us to the third stage, one of the most powerful shifts that happens if you stay silent long enough. When you truly hold your ground, when you stop chasing, stop checking in, stop orbiting around their emotional availability, it starts to shake them, not just emotionally, but at the level of identity. Because now, for the first time, they're no longer in control of the dynamic. And for someone whose entire attachment strategy is rooted in control and emotional distance, that hits deep. When you were still engaging in during the relationship or even post-breakup communication, they could still steer the narrative. They could offer breadcrumbs, play hot and cold, or reframe situations in a way that allowed them to feel in charge. That illusion of control helped soothe their inner anxiety without requiring them to change or grow. But no contact strips all of that away. Without your response, without your presence, without access to you, digitally or emotionally, they're left alone with the reality they've been avoiding. And this is the moment when they begin to feel what they've spent the entire relationship running from. The discomfort of not being able to control the outcome, the inability to predict your next move, the realization that they don't get to set the terms anymore. That's why this stage often causes deep confusion in the avoidant. They're not used to sitting in powerlessness. They're used to managing perception, managing you, managing their own internal discomfort by pulling strings from a distance. But now, there's nothing left to pull. They can't find you online. They can't get a rise out of you. They can't drop a vague message and watch you come running. And that, for someone with a dismissive avoidant attachment style, is terrifying. Because control is their emotional shield. It's what gives them the illusion of safety in a world where vulnerability feels like danger. Without that control, they start spinning. Not necessarily with visible emotion, but internally, the panic brews. Because what do you do when the thing you thought you could always count on, the person you thought would always be there, simply stops showing up. Here's what's important to remember from a secure lens. Their lack of control does not mean you are punishing them. You're simply no longer participating in a dynamic that required you to abandon yourself. Your silence is not revenge, it's a boundary, and boundaries always reveal the truth. They show who's willing to meet you in maturity and who only stayed connected because they could manipulate the closeness on their terms. So, while they're feeling shaken, you're finally standing still, clear, untouched by their chaos. That is your power, not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you've decided to stop hurting yourself dead. And eventually, if your silence holds and the emotional distance sets in, regret begins to creep in. But with a dismissive avoidant, that regret doesn't always look like you expect it to. It's quiet, often buried, and filtered through layers of ego, pride, and emotional self-protection. When regret shows up, it usually leads to one of two outcomes. The first is that they reach out, maybe with a casual message, maybe with a hint of nostalgia. It might sound like, "Hey, just thinking about you," or "Hope you're doing well." But make no mistake, this is often not about rebuilding the relationship from a place of deep self-awareness. It's more often about reassurance. They want to know they still have access to you, that you're still emotionally available, even if only on the outskirts. And once they feel you inch closer, once your energy softens, they feel secure again, not with you, but within their own ego. And the moment you show vulnerability or make a bid for emotional closeness, their avoidance system kicks in. The wall goes back up. The cycle repeats. Now, in rare cases, that regret may spark genuine reflection. It might lead them to do the work, to take responsibility, seek support, and return with clarity and willingness to repair. But if we're being honest, that's not the norm. What's far more common is the second outcome. They pull away even further. Why? Because admitting regret means confronting something avoidants work relentlessly to avoid: emotional accountability, vulnerability. Saying, "I was wrong," that threatens the very ego structure they've built to survive. To someone with a dismissive avoidance style, maintaining control over their emotions feels safer than facing the truth that they pushed away something good. Even if they miss you deeply, they'd often rather convince themselves it wasn't right than admit they self-sabotaged. And so they double down, they rationalize, they tell themselves, "I'll find someone else," or "we weren't really compatible," or "it just wasn't meant to be." They build narratives that protect their sense of control, even if it means losing a connection that actually mattered. Because the pain of vulnerability still outweighs the pain of loss. For now. From a secure lens, this is where your clarity must stay intact. Regret is not the same as readiness. Missing you is not the same as growth. Wanting to reconnect is not the same as doing the real work to build something better. You don't soften your boundary just because they've had a moment of doubt. You wait to see if that doubt turns into change, not just a reach for comfort. You hold your ground not to punish, but to protect your peace, your progress, and your self-worth. Because the truth is, someone who would rather walk away than do the work to keep you doesn't need to be chased. They need to be released. By now, I hope it's becoming clear what I've been leading toward, what this whole message has really been about. When you've gone no contact with a dismissive avoidant, what you're really doing is choosing you. You're stepping out of a cycle that was never meant to sustain love, only to protect someone from their own vulnerability. Now, for the first time in a long time, you have the chance to stop managing their emotional discomfort and start caring for your own well-being. This is your time to breathe, to feel, to process everything you've been carrying, often silently, while trying to hold the relationship together. And more than anything, this is your time to ask the question that really matters. What do I need now? What does my healing look like from here? Because that's the most important part of all of this. You matter. Your peace matters. Your heart was never meant to be stuck in an endless loop of proving, pleading, and waiting. You've already given more than enough. You tried, you showed up, you met them where they were, even when it meant shrinking yourself. And if they couldn't meet you back, that's not your failure, that's their limit, and it's not your job to fix it. But what is your job now? Your responsibility to yourself is to make sure you are taken care of. That's what no contact is ultimately for. It's not a punishment. It's not manipulation. It's space. It's truth. It's a boundary that says, I deserve more than this confusion. I deserve to feel safe and seen and chosen. And in that space, you finally begin to see clearly. You realize that the version of love you were holding onto, the hope that maybe one day they'd come around, was not the version of love you actually want or need. You realize that you've spent so much of your energy trying to be enough for someone who never truly opened the door to receive you, and you finally understand. That's not love. That's survival. But you don't have to survive anymore. You get to heal. You get to build a life that reflects the love and emotional safety you gave so freely to someone else. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment you needed to come back home to yourself. And the truth is, that is the only thing left that truly matters. As we reach the end of this video, let's take a moment to gently reflect on what we've uncovered together. We explored what a dismissive avoidant often experiences during no contact. The initial relief, the delayed emotional awareness, the creeping regret, and the internal tug-of-war between control and vulnerability. We looked at how your silence, your boundaries, and your decision to no longer engage in a one-sided dynamic don't just affect them, they transform you. The core message is this: you don't heal by chasing closure. You heal by choosing self-respect over temporary relief. The moment you stop centering your worth around whether someone returns, regrets, or finally sees your value, you come back home to yourself. That's where true freedom begins. You are not here to be an option for someone who keeps you on the sidelines. You are here to be loved fully, clearly, and with presence. And that starts with how you choose you, over and over again. Thank you so much for staying until the end. That tells me you're not just listening, you're ready. Ready to break old patterns, ready to protect your peace, ready to rise into the version of yourself that no longer settles for emotional breadcrumbs. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and let us know how this journey has shown up in your life. Your voice might be the encouragement someone else needs. And if you found value here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content created to support your emotional growth and healing. You are not behind, you're becoming. Keep going. You're doing beautifully.